Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm here sharing today with you. I want to call it your soul's purpose, though I know we've done episodes. We have an episode with that title already. This is really the week that we are called to realign with our soul's purpose, to remind ourselves of our soul's contract, and to almost emerge into this life, but with a new soul. And so this week we want to talk about how to get aligned with that opportunity, how to make sure we don't miss it, how to prepare ourselves to take advantage of it. And then, of course, use that wisdom and that energy to support us not only for the next week, but also keeping that in the back of our mind throughout the year to make sure that we not only get aligned this week, but we stay aligned for the coming year. Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual weather forecast where we provide our listeners with the most practical and powerful tools to navigate the coming 7 days. We do that by gleaning through the wisdom and tools of Kabbalah and filling every episode with not only that wisdom and those tools, but also practical stories and examples from our lives and the lives of the students that we know that are practicing this wisdom, so that every episode ends up revealing wisdom and tools that you can use anytime. And because we're still in those powerful 10 days that are essentially setting up the coming year, we want to be mindful. And again, last week's episode shared, I think, most powerfully about what those 10 days are about. But I want to actually focus on a concept that Eitan pointed out that we didn't expand on so much, and then dig into how to use that for the next 7 days. So one of the things that Eitan said is that from Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur, it's almost like rebirth, that the soul essentially goes to sleep on a certain level, beginning on Rosh Hashanah, and is only really fully awakened and downloaded at the end of Yom Kippur, which is this coming Thursday evening. That would be the end of Yom Kippur. That's the end of the 10th day. And what that really means, and we'll understand also how it's connected to our soul's contract and purpose, is that our movie for the coming year the screenplay hasn't been written, right? So in keeping that in the back of our minds, even though what we're dealing with every day this week seems real, seems important, doesn't feel like an illusion or anything unsubstantial, there on some level, it's not real. Our soul is going through a auditing process, and the future, to whatever degree it can be determined, and we know we've spoken before about how the wisdom of Kabbalah explains that our lives are like a hybrid of fate and free will. Predetermined destiny and free will, that even though the twists and turns are already laid out before us, we are still the ones choosing those twists and turns. And every twist and turn, to the degree that I resist my normal gravity, my knee-jerk reactions to that degree, and changing not only the reality that I'm in, but also the potential realities I can upgrade to in that given moment. So I know I've recommended this before, but if you've ever seen the movie Defending Your Life with Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep, that movie basically shows what happens between lifetimes in a very comical way, but in an eerily close way to what's described in The Gate of Reincarnations by Rav Isaac Luria Diari. So basically what happens, I'm just going to give it a summary so that we also understand what's happening this week, is that in every lifetime, between every lifetime, the entire film reel of that life is examined as to how well we fulfilled our soul's contract. Did we, if we came in a particular lifetime to work on overcoming our fears, becoming more flexible, becoming more patient, having greater self-love and self-worth, right? The question is not, were we a nice person? Were we a good person? How saintly were we? But rather, how successful were we at transforming that which we committed to transform? And how successful were we in sharing the unique light that only our soul can reveal? So between lifetimes, that assessment is made, that audit is made. And then what's determined is, where do we go next? Have we accomplished enough of our soul's total purpose to wait it out for everybody else? Or do we need to go back to Earth in a different body? And what are the conditions? If that's the case, what are the conditions do we need in that lifetime to ensure the ultimate success in fulfilling that lifetime's contract? So that there's a mini version of that happens every night when we go to sleep as well. The soul elevates, the accounting is done, and we download, we receive the energy and the wisdom that we need for the coming day. That's why sometimes you're just sitting and doing nothing. Maybe you're in the shower, you're driving, and you have an epiphany or a realization, or someone says something and you have this new awareness, light bulbs going off. That's a result of wisdom that you may have downloaded when you were not conscious, suddenly coming to your conscious awareness. So even though that does happen every night on the smaller scale, and it happens on the largest scale between lifetimes, in these 10 days, that's also what's happening. And when you realize that, you realize, okay, wait a second. I can't really change, meaning they're reviewing last year. They're not reviewing today. So on one hand, there's not so much we can do about that, except part of the knowledge is I'm living in a kind of suspended animation right now. My soul is at the, I don't know how you would call it, the upstairs office, and everything, all the receipts are being reviewed and everything is being taken into account. At the same time, that's part of where our focus is for this week's episode also, is that the 10th day of that process, which we call Yom Kippur, right? That's the gift of this process. And the peak of it, which happens on Yom Kippur, is based on the movie that I'm supposed to have in the coming year, which is compiled or is determined by compiling our hits and misses from the past year. What else can I cleanse, heal, and transform on Yom Kippur so as to have an even better year than I may have built for myself based upon my thoughts, words, and actions last year? So what does that really mean? According to the teachings of Kabbalah, what happens on Yom Kippur, it's the highest day of the year, the most elevated day of the year. And the Zohar explains that many different reasons why. One of them is that the negative side, there's a whole explanation that we read about in the Torah, specifically on Yom Kippur, about the two goats. It's a long, complicated explanation, but basically on Yom Kippur, the negative forces in this world are distracted. The negative force gets a scapegoat, is busy with the scapegoat, and we get to tap into unbridled light and blessings and energy so powerful that it can cleanse all of the darkness, all of the negativity, anything from our past that we have taken responsibility for, and even the stuff that we don't even know about. And that's one of the reasons that if you've ever participated in the prayers and meditations of Yom Kippur, we're busy enumerating all different kinds of negativity, even ones that we've never done before, because we want to not only cleanse things from this lifetime and things that we're aware of, the things from previous lifetimes and things that we're not aware of. Now, that's a very elevated explanation, and it's amazing for those 24 hours, but what can we take from it, not only for those 24 hours, but for our entire lives? And the overriding concept that I think can not only make a difference this week, but can really change how we look at everything that we do, is that in that same explanation about, in the days in biblical times when there was a holy temple, on Yom Kippur, there were two sacrifices that were made, and again, not necessarily for the context of the podcast, today's episode, but it's really a reminder for us that there are two aspects to every individual on planet Earth. There is the real us, the true us, our essence, which is our soul, which is a spark of the light of the Creator, which is inherently good, connected, positive, inspired, constant, loving, caring. And then there's the other part of us. And the other part of us is only a product of this physical reality. When we are not in our body, there is no other part of us. It's only the part of us. It's only our soul. It's only that piece of the light of the Creator. So the reason this week is so powerful is because, and yes, you can do this work any day of the year, but this is the week that we are supported cosmically, divinely, to remember I am not my actions. I am not my words. I am not my confusion or my disappointment or my doubts or my fears. I am my soul. And that other aspect of us, the negativity we created, the ego, the opponent, Satan, Yetzer Hara, whatever you want to call it, that's not us. It's simply a let's call it software that's installed into every body on the planet to give us the opportunity to fulfill our soul's purpose. The soul's purpose, again, is the healing, the transformation, the overcoming of the limited self, which if you don't have that software of the opponents, of the ego, what's to overcome? Your soul. You can see the goodness in everything and everyone. And that's that because of the light that shines on Yom Kippur, we have the ability to connect to that realm where we can even see the goodness in the darkness, so that therefore darkness doesn't exist at all. And that ability we have 365 days a year is amplified to such an extent that we learn that there are different restrictions that we do on Yom Kippur so that we don't fall to that confusion that we have the rest of the year, that I am my ego, I am my body, I am my selfish needs and wants. No, I am a soul who's inhabiting a body for a period, and this is the work of transcending the limitations of the body and what comes with it. So part of what we want to shift this week, not only until Thursday, but to create that shift and have it last to the entire year, is I am not my negativity. I am my soul. And the work of this week, really the work since the new moon of Virgo, has been to become aware of my negativity, to understand, to distinguish, and to separate between who I really am and the things that I may have thought and said and done when I was operating from ego, opponent, lack, fear, and what have you. And to remember that that's not who I am. And the real, I think that the most powerful awakening of this whole period is really what distinguishes a person who lives a life in pursuit of spiritual fulfillment versus a person who is just about acquiring, accumulating respect, status, honor, even to want to leave that respect, status, and honor for their family. We're missing the point, right? Even to want to leave a legacy behind us is not the fullest extent of what anybody's soul's purpose is. It really is to step into that living a spiritually focused life, that's the purpose for which we were created. And sometimes when we lose sight of it, we end up accumulating negativity and darkness. And I said sometimes, it's all the time. Anytime we forget that we are not our soul, that we are not here to reveal the light of the Creator, anytime we forget or we step out of our role as bearers of light, of goodness, of blessing, of wisdom, that's when we create darkness. So this is one of the most powerful weeks of the year to realign with, what is my intention? Okay, well, I have a job. I have to provide for my family. Maybe I have a product or a service that I really believe in that's making the world a better place. But what is my intention behind all of that? What is my intention behind wanting a fulfilling relationship, wanting to be healthy, wanting to do good in the world? What's the catalyst behind all of that? And I don't want to, I have a tendency to say, if not, if what's our intention? If we don't have the right intention, what can happen? I don't even want to go there. I think for all of us this week, if we can sit and ascertain, what is my intention? And if my intention can be upgraded, elevated, become even more aligned with expansiveness, light, impact, that doing that work, that internal reflection and turning the dial up on our purpose, on our intention, on our alignment this week, and specifically on Yom Kippur, can have a really, really dramatic effect on our entire year. And so that's why, I think in a way, part of the confusion that happens for us in our day-to-day lives, what's really important? I talk to a lot of people who are studying this wisdom and living it, trying to live it. And one of the things that I would say the top two things that get in the way of us holding on to this intention 24/7 or even 18/7 is that we get confused, right? That something that seems important to us, whether because of the way that we were raised or society or our religion or maybe our company's values, right? Or in something in our environment confuses us, and we start to think that maybe revealing the light of our soul isn't the priority here. And maybe it's how much money we can make or how successful we're going to be in whatever area of our lives we're talking about, instead of remembering my soul brought me here, not my body, not this business, not even my, I've spoken to so many people over the years who say, I know it's my purpose to have a family and to be a parent. It's nobody's purpose. It may be a vehicle for which the healing, transformation, and revelation of your gifts can take place, but nobody was put here to propagate. That's even though it may feel like it's a desire, it's a gift, it's a way to express our light. It absolutely is, but it's never the purpose. Really going back and being able to clarify, almost to come up with a mission statement for your year. Why am I here? What am I doing? What's my focus? And the Kabbalists correlate intention with desire. So that if you have a desire that's not aligned with that intention, how can you purify? And that's another key word that we go to on Yom Kippur, is it's another opportunity. And that's why the work of this week is so powerful. If you can identify a desire that is still a bit selfish, or an intention that's still short-sighted, and you don't authentically feel a pure desire or a greater not compulsion, but you're not compelled to do more than what you're desiring, bring it to Yom Kippur. Let that tremendous light cleanse and purify it, and see what happens afterwards. And the days after Yom Kippur, I want to just call attention to it for 30 seconds. We have 4 days basically between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, which we'll talk about in next week's episode. It's a week-long download. It's very powerful, and we'll get to that. But those 4 days are the opportunity to kind of fill that new space that we've created through the work of the previous 40 days. So again, it's a time to be in what we call sharing mode, mercy mode, giving mode, compassion, empathy, really to be mindful of our own quickness to jump, to judge, to jump to conclusions, and really kind of stay, I want to say vacation mode, where like nothing's a big deal and nothing bothers you, because that new soul is, it's not a new soul, right? It's the soul that's within us that is complete, so purified. It's like, sometimes you get something back from the dry cleaners and it's like brand new. That's really the effect of Yom Kippur, that we will be so clean, so purified, so clear, so not confused about who we are, what our intentions and desires are, that sometimes it takes a little while for that to get to know that new us. And so to take those days, it's really Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, to be gentle, to be, I think the only thing to be really active about is sharing, is kindness, is goodness, give compliments, call people out when you see them doing kindness, goodness. Look for ways that you can do things for people anonymously, right? Really let your ego get used to taking the back seat and having your soul be the driver. And I think that part of actually I should say, if you don't have plans for Yom Kippur, if you've never experienced Yom Kippur the way that I've been describing it, I will make sure in the show notes that there is a link so that you can at least stream live with us if you're not in New York or LA or Miami or any of the centers, any of the cities in the world where we have a physical center. Even if you are, and maybe you can't uncommit to what you're doing, we'd love for you to join us, even just streaming, to be able to understand and taste what I'm talking about here and what the Kabbalists have spoken about for millennia. That whole, the idea of distinguishing or separating ourselves from the physicality. One of the restrictions is we fast, we don't eat and we don't drink, so as to not let the body bring down the soul in the elevated mode that it gets to be in for those 25 hours. So there's two things that I wanted to share with you guys about that. One is I will put in the link and you can learn more about what's involved. You may be listening to this on Friday and say, well, I missed the book completely. You didn't miss the book completely, because what takes place whether you're conscious of it or not. However, to the degree that you're conscious of it, you can take advantage of it. And there are still all the cosmic windows. I mean, every day is a new cosmic window and a new opportunity to connect. So that's why I said in the beginning, this week really supports us to achieve that purified intention, desire, clarity, alignment. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't strive for the pure, that clarity every day of the year. So I remember when I started studying Kabbalah and I started learning about the energy of the week, I was working and going to school and I could only study about it on Friday morning. And I was always so annoyed, like, if I only knew on Monday what to focus on, and that's part of the inspiration for Weekly Energy Boost, is that you will, we'll all know what to focus on in the coming week and therefore have you dramatically better and default. The other thing that I wanted to call to everyone's attention is Eitan is on Jay Shetty's On Purpose podcast this week, and you couldn't be more thrilled. He is featured on this week's episode with Jay Shetty, with Madonna, and it's just such a pleasurable listen, heartfelt, inspired, and I hope, and Eitan would also love for everybody who's listening now to listen to that as well. I will link it mission notes as well. And I am just so excited to see how, every week as you share Weekly Energy Boost with more and more people, and I imagine the globe lighting up with consciousness, with energy, with light. And I just I don't have the words to articulate how powerful that one sharing it with one person, 5 people, 10 people that you do really makes a difference in the world. And I know maybe that person might say thank you, or that might person not say anything. Over the years, I've encountered people who have listened to the podcast for years before they ever took a step to studying more. I hope you are inspired to take steps, of course, but the first step is sharing what you're listening to. I can't thank you enough for all these years of listening and sharing. And of course, if this is your first episode, welcome. Weekly Energy Boost is available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You can follow us on social media to receive even more content to support you in what we share every week. You can visit our website, weeklyenergyboost.com, where you can find our archives, learn more about what we think is important for our listeners to know about, as well as send us a message and get the donate button to help make Weekly Energy Boost possible. And we'll see you next week. on the Weekly Energy Boost.